I finally feel a little bit more ready to talk about my dad and his passing and kind of everything that I've been dealing with since. And it might seem like a little bit of a random video to do, but I've been posting a bit on my Instagram stories on my horror account, Possessed by Horror on Instagram, and people are finding it helpful, and some suggested making a video because, as the title says, my dad did not leave a will, and I feel like it's a taboo subject. No one likes to talk about death, or maybe, you know, not generally, but no one likes to admit that they're dying when they are. No one likes to think about that kind of stuff and like prepare for their own death. But going through this process and dealing with it as a child of someone who has died has really put everything into perspective, and I'm just making this video to kind of share my experiences so far and like give you a little insight on what it's like when someone dies without a will or a trust, and then also advise you to ensure that the people around you make a will or something, because I never want people to go through what I'm having to go through on top of losing someone like a parent. That's difficult enough, and then it's like you almost don't even have time to grieve. So we'll get to all of that in a second. I kind of structured this video out a little bit so it doesn't seem so disorganized. I wanted to talk a little bit about my dad's passing. I know people are curious, like how people, you know, pass and things like that. My dad had a lung infection for years, and he was on oxygen full time. And the reason why I talk about it at all, even though I don't know if he would necessarily want me to share his business and stuff online because he was a private person, but the reason why I bring it up is because there was an intent to make me an executor of his will. So he had intended to do this. I had never talked directly to him about it, but I visited him when I was pregnant last year and had given him my social security number for this purpose, but it was kind of like just known that it was going to be for this purpose. We didn't outright talk about it, and like it, you know, he didn't explain what he was going to necessarily be doing, and I think it's because he didn't want to admit that maybe the time was close, and I think he might have been in a little bit of denial of how progressed his illness was. So my dad ended up passing in April, on April 6th, and that week was my moving week, as you know, and my daughter was only 4 months old. So that month I was completely numb because I just could not feel grief yet. It didn't like hit me yet because I was so busy. But yeah, just trying to care for a 4-month-old. We were having like feeding issues. She wasn't gaining weight, so I was dealing with that all on top of everything. But that's besides the point. The grief did not come for, you know, maybe a month or so. I had bouts of crying, but it was like I wasn't processing what was actually happening. And I feel like it's complicated. I don't know if I've ever talked about it before, but I wasn't that close with my dad. It's kind of awkward to talk about. My parents got divorced when I was 10, and that was obviously life-changing. They both remarried, and I feel like that adds such a complex layer, because it's like if this sounds really bad, but if someone I was really, really close to passed away, it's like I would know how to grieve that. But because I wasn't as close with him, it was harder in a sense to feel those, go through those feelings, you know? I didn't mean for this whole video to be about grief, but I've never experienced this before in my life, and I didn't realize how much it would affect me, to be honest, and that's why I've waited so long to do this video. But it's actually good that I waited so long, because I've gotten a lot of insight into the process of what happens when someone dies without a will, because I'm well into the process. Paperwork's filed, court hearings coming up, everything like that, so I can kind of fill you guys in on what happens, what actually happens, instead of just, I don't know, speculation. Anyway, back to his intention to make a will. He had just never done it, and he ran out of time, and it's frustrating, and there's some hard feelings there, because it would have been easy while he was alive to just do it, but I wasn't close enough to him to like make him do it, you know what I mean? Like it was an awkward elephant in the room kind of thing that I didn't feel comfortable bringing up to him, because I don't want to tell him, hey, you know, you might want to do this now. It wasn't anything that I wanted to push. I wish I would have, maybe, and I feel like I should have encouraged him a little bit more to actually go through with that process, because obviously that would have saved so much time and money. And it was hard because it felt like he had just kind of thrown his hands in the air and just given up, because I had given him my social security number and everything in maybe October of 2022, and he passed in April. So there was, you know, a 6-month time period where he could have done something, even just a letter as a statement. I'm his only child, and I'll get into like my feelings of this process later a little bit, but it feels like it should be black and white. I'm his only child. His wife, my stepmother, had passed away in 2020, so there was no one else. I'm the only one. I will say my aunt, my dad's sister, has been so helpful in this process, and she's really what helped me get, you know, my feet on the ground when it comes to this, and, you know, gave me the recommendation for the lawyer, and like just kind of helped me figure out what to do next. This has affected my grieving process. It's not something that I can just, you know, grieve and then move on and I'm happy and like fine now. It's not like that. Grief is so strange. And I had no idea that this is what it was like, how it would just sneak up on you one day. Something would remind you of something, especially when it's a parent. Whether you're close to them or not, he was a huge part of my life for 10 years, the first 10 years of my life. So there's like parts of my childhood that come up, especially now raising a daughter. That's, you know, a lot of shadow work, a lot of childhood memories popping back up, raising my own child. It's very strange how this cycle of life has happened to me, where my dad passed and I have a child myself. It's just, but she helps my grief, and she gives me something to do and something to focus on, so I'm just not like blindsided by my feelings and then wallowing all day. So she gives me a focus, and you know, she is helping heal parts of me that I didn't even know needed to be healed. Anyway, but it's affected my grief in that I have to constantly tell people what happened. It's not something, I'm not a very open person in real life. I share a lot on the internet, but when it comes to like telling people in real life, I get uncomfortable because I don't like the feel bad for me, the sympathy. That's why I didn't tell the internet for a while when it happened, because I'm just like, oh, I don't like that kind of attention, that sympathy. And so having to call all my dad's accounts, everything, and tell people constantly over and over again on the phone, like, my dad passed in April and I'm trying to deal with this or pay this bill, can I do that? And having to, you know, hear, oh, I'm so sorry. And I appreciate it when people are sympathetic. There was actually one instance where I called the water company for the county that he lives in, because he lives in another county that I do. He lived about an hour away. I called the water company and had told them the situation. There was like a past due bill of multiple months. He died in April. I was calling, I think, in June. So there was a few months that were owed. And I got no sympathy at all. And I don't expect people to like grovel at me and be like, oh my God, so I don't like that. But they had no acknowledgement at all, and they were so cold, and basically just said, you need to pay the bill. The bill is owed. The water shut off will cost $60. If you don't pay it by this day, you owe the bill. Like, you have to pay it. And it's like, thank you for all your help. That's one thing that happens, is no one, they care a little bit, but companies, you know, whoever you're calling, whether it be their gas and electric, their water, their mortgage, my dad had a storage unit, there's bank accounts, phone accounts, you know, there's so many accounts that have to be notified in this process, and past due bills that are expected to be paid. I don't have that kind of money to pay them. So I'm calling these places trying to figure this out. They won't tell me anything, but they'll be happy to take my money. That's one thing that feels very cold about this process. And I get it. They're a company. They're running a business. They need the bill paid, whatever. It just feels very heartless and very cold. And I mean, that's just the way it is. So I have no expectations that it would go any different, but it's also something I wasn't expecting in this process, to just be met with people being like, you gotta pay it. No, that's the bill. You gotta pay it. I can't tell you anything because you're not on the account. but that's the bill that needs to be paid. So let's get into what actually does happen when someone dies without a will or a trust. I'm not really sure on the difference. I should probably educate you on the difference and things, but I don't have that kind of experience of filing a will or a trust or having anything notarized officially, which I'm going to now that I have a child. I will not let Fern go through this, let me tell you. I'm going to have a will and possibly look into getting some life insurance here soon as well, just in case. So my partner and Fern are taken care of. You never know. I just feel like people need to address their own mortality, and it's something, like I said in the beginning of this video, we don't like to think about, we don't like to talk about it. It feels very taboo to talk about death. But if you set these things up beforehand, before you die, it is so much easier for the people around you. And I feel like that's all we want when we pass, is to not be a burden to someone else. But it's so rare that that actually does happen, that people do end up becoming burdens, and it's sad. It's a sad process that is how we feel about our loved ones who have passed, and it's not intentional. It's just people don't like to think about it or do anything about it. So anyway, without a will or a trust, you have to go through probate. This is just in the United States. I don't know how it works for all over the world, and I am in California, so this is just a Californian's perspective. Again, I don't know if it's like this even all over the country. You need a probate lawyer, and it goes into probate court. Basically, it's just establishing that you're the next of kin legally, and they take everything, your driver's license, you know, his death certificate, and just file all of that. There's a big paperwork. Let me grab my folder and I'll show you. So there's a lot of paperwork that needs to be filed when it comes to the lawyers. So what you're really wanting to get with these court documents and when it goes to court and everything is the letter of administration. That is what you need to take to every single company, mortgage company, everything. That's what I need to sell his house, which that will be in a, you know, I'll be doing that process here soon. When did I even file? When were these filed? Okay, so these were officially filed on July 17th, and probate takes so long. That's the thing about probate. One of the reasons why it's so inconvenient. It can take upwards to 2 years before everything's finalized. However, the court date where I get the letter of administration, hopefully, I think she said hopefully we get it on that day. I don't know what that means. I thought for sure I'd get it on that day. I don't really know. Is in September. So from July to September, I can do nothing. I will have to get a specific realtor for probate, so I'm allowed to sell the house as soon as I get my letter of administration. So I can sell the house while everything's in probate. And I'm not really sure what happens after this court hearing and why it takes so long. I don't know how long it's going to take. I'm hoping I get more information in September, and I will definitely update you guys, at least on my Instagram, on my horror Instagram, which I just use as my personal one now. But once I get the letter, I can then sell the house, and hopefully I will sell it before the house defaults. So there's not been a mortgage payment paid since April, and obviously then the bank or the mortgage company can take the house if it's not paid. Like if you default on your mortgage loan, then it's theirs. So it hasn't defaulted yet. I actually had my lawyer look into it because I was panicking trying to figure out how I'm going to pay for my dad's mortgage every month, because it is a lot of money. It's thousands of dollars. And I was like, how am I can't do that, obviously. I actually went to a credit union and applied for a loan in this process to pay for my dad's mortgage. And it got denied immediately. I'm just sharing all my financial business with you. I don't really care. I'm open and transparent with you. But it was denied. I never heard back from the bank lady. She said she would look into it and let me know, and she never did. So, but luckily I don't need it. So I emailed my lawyer that day and I'm like, I don't know if you can help me with this. Or, you know, maybe he had home insurance or something. I don't really know, but I can't make his mortgage payments and I don't want to lose the house. And she said, you don't need to make mortgage payments as long as it hasn't defaulted. They have 120 days after it defaults to take the house, which is 4 months. And it hasn't defaulted yet. So I have basically 4 months from the default date, and it hasn't done that. So I'm hoping I have maybe like 5-6 months in order to sell the house in September when I can start that process. Does that make sense? Is this really, are you following me here? The profit of the house, if there is any, will go into the probate account. So once I have my letter, I open a bank account in the name of the estate, and all the money that I inherit, I guess, from my dad goes into that account, including the house profit, any retirement. Actually, the retirement might not even have to go through probate. Once I have my letter, I'm gonna see if I have to do that. But the probate lawyers obviously need to be paid. So let me tell you how much they make. On average, a probate lawyer ranges from $10,000 to $15,000 flat fee. So it's not hourly. I'm not getting charged for communication with her like through email. I'm not getting charged through these meetings. And all of it is paid at the end out of the estate. So I actually don't have to pay any out of my own pocket. It's going to come out of whatever money is left over from, you know, selling the house. The mortgage company gets paid, obviously. I have to pay off the house. Then whatever's left, the lawyers take their cut, and then I get the rest. So the reason why the range is like 10,000 to 15,000 is because it depends on the amount of the estate. So it says, let me see, I just saw that form. For $100,000, say the value of the estate is $100,000, the lawyer commission is 4% of that amount. And then the next $100,000 is 3%. And I think, yeah, and then if it's $800,000, it's 2%. It goes down the more money it is, because obviously the less percent they would need to take. Does that make sense? Anyway, it's definitely not going to be $800,000. But yeah, so it ranges between 10K, 15K, and then there's like some flat fees. They have to file it in the newspaper. Did you know they still do that? They have to file, I forgot what it was called. It's not like an obituary, but they have to put in notice in the paper in case there's any financial institutions that want to bill my dad and basically say, oh yeah, he owes us money, and send a bill. And then we sit down basically with the lawyer and figure out which one of those needs to be paid, which comes out of the estate as well. I did not know they still filed things in the newspaper. It's fascinating. Again, I don't know if every county does this even, or if it's just California. I have no idea. So that's kind of the process of what you have to do when someone dies without a will. You find a probate lawyer, it goes to probate court, there's a hearing. I can attend on video call, I guess, because it's gonna take place in my dad's county. I could attend it in person if I want to, but they allow video calls, so I'm probably gonna do that. So that's kind of that process and what I'm looking at. But it was not easy getting this explained to me and like getting to this point, because I didn't know what to do. I had all his mail and all these random bills, his oxygen equipment, PG&E. I had to move his PG&E into my name. And you're wondering why I don't just shut it down. It's because there are still things happening inside the house. We still need to clear out the house, which my aunt has been doing, you know, most of that. There's a lot of stuff there that I need to get, that I want, like pictures and things. You know, there's things that I knew I wanted from his house and that I grew up with. And like I said, he has a storage unit that's like 20 years old and I don't even know what's in it. I've been paying the bill every month because I can't gain access to it until I have this letter of administration from the courts. So I'm waiting to get that so I can get into the storage unit, but I've just been paying it for now because I don't want to lose access to that. I don't know what's in it. It could be a bunch of garbage, to be honest. It could be a bunch of stuff from my childhood. I don't know. That's what's weird, and I don't know. Maybe I'll, you know, film a little bit of that when I actually do gain access and see what's in there. I don't know. Maybe I can film more of this process if you guys are interested. But going through this process of like probate court and like having to like call these people, it's just one of those things that to me feels so anti-human for someone to go through. It's like filing taxes or looking for health insurance. Those things feel so anti-human, and like, what are we doing here? We live on a floating rock in space. Like, I'm his only child. Like, it should be black and white. Like, things just should be black and white, and it's just not. And there's so much red tape and weird things that don't make any sense to me. Like, I still don't really understand the process. I don't know what happens after September when I get that letter and court is filed. Why does it take a year? Why is it a year until I can gain access to, you know, the profit of the house after I sell it. I don't know. It's like they take so long to prove that I'm his child. I don't know why they need so, I don't know. But it honestly, it muddies the grief. It muddies my experience of grieving. And it's like, that to me is more of like a spiritual experience to go through losing someone like that, someone who was in my life, my entire life. Losing a parent, we all will go through that. Losing a parent is nothing new. Lots of people have done it, but it's new to me. I've never gone through this. I've never thought about it, to be honest. I didn't know what it would be like because I've never lost someone like this. So to me, it's like a whole new experience, and I feel like I'm not getting to grieve the way I want to grieve because I'm having to deal with all the legal stuff in addition. It's like, even when I think positive things about my dad and think about memories, you know, his birthday passed in July, and it's like tainted by all this legal stuff, all this stupid paperwork, and like the things I have to do, and like, oh, let me I gotta pay my dad's bills, let me call and pay his bills. And like, it's not the money that I'm mad about, it's like the process is what I'm mad about. And honestly, I am frustrated. I'm frustrated that nothing was done prior to this to make it easier for me, because he had to have known that it would be a process. Maybe he knew that eventually I'd make it out on the other side and I'd be good, and you know, he would take care of me financially. You know, it's just been harder to deal with because of all of this, and it's so frustrating. And I've gone through I mean, the stages of grief are real. I've gone through anger, I've, you know, gone through denial, like the numbness at the very beginning. I couldn't feel, I like didn't feel anything, and I was like, oh my god, why am I not feeling anything right now? I was just like blindsided by everything, you know. When I heard the news that he didn't have a will, I was like, why wasn't there one? And it's frustrating, especially because I thought that process had already begun. Like I thought he would be on top of it because he's that kind of person he was very responsible. So I was confused. It's just tricky. It's weird. I don't know. I don't like all this legal stuff and like being reminded of that every time I think about my dad. And I'm hoping I can reach a place when all this is said and done, after like a year goes by, I can just like, you know, be with the good memories and not have to process my grief in this way, you know, through a legal system. It's just so anti-human. And I mean, it's what needs to be done, and I hate it. But another thing that I'm frustrated about that I don't really talk about that much. So my parents have always been smokers my whole life, and I've hated it. That's why if you ask any of my friends, I'm so anti-cigarette to the point I can't be around them. At least I prefer not to. I heavily discourage people from using them. I'm very anti-cigarette, and I have never once in my life tried them because my parents. I grew up in households where they smoked inside, and I was accused as a teenager of smoking cigarettes, and so I have some resentment towards you know, cigarettes and smoking a little bit, and even more so now because that's ultimately what killed my dad, and that I feel really bitter about it. I really didn't think I'd get into all this with you right now. This is not what this video is about at all, but I'm just being honest. And I told Ryan that, you know, I was like, I hate them so much because I know it's what's going to kill all of my parents. So all of this is pretty much a wake-up call for what I'm going to encourage my mom and Bill to do, to make sure that I don't have to go through this again with them, because this sucks. It sucks, and I want them to stop smoking cigarettes, and I want them to make a will. If they could just do those for me, that would be great. Obviously no pressure, but pressure on the will at least. Anyway, this is a video encouraging you to make people stop smoking in your life, please. Or if you're a smoker, rethink it. I'm not trying to judge anyone here. I have a very personal hatred of cigarettes. It's very personal. I'm not judging individuals who do it. But if you are, maybe take this as a sign to contemplate quitting, because it's really hard on if you get to an age where it ends up killing you, or it, you know, makes things worse for your health in the long run, and it's hard on your loved ones. So just maybe think about it, but also make a will. If you have kids, make a will. If you have parents that are still alive, make them make a will. I'm not really sure what the process is. I'm sure it's different in every state in the United States, probably even more different in other countries, but have them do something. Write a letter, it doesn't have to be notarized, saying they leave everything to you. Whatever the legal jargon is in your state, look into it, please, and make them do it, because this process is hard and losing someone is hard. This just makes it even harder. And I just don't want other people to have to go through this. And I know it's uncomfortable to talk about. Your parents or you might feel resistance to wanting to address this. I don't care. I know I'm going to die. I'm very okay with that. As long as things are okay for my child. That's like the most important thing to me now, as I get older, is I accept that that's what's going to happen to me. I'm gonna make sure everything is set up for her, and I want her to be able to grieve in a normal, healthy way and not have to deal with legal stuff in addition to it. I have no idea if this video was helpful to you at all, to anyone, if this is the information that you were looking for. I don't know. This is the first time I'm going through it. I don't know a lot of the process, but I will keep you posted as I go along. And if you have any insight into this, whether it be, you know, different or not from what you've experienced, I would love to hear your experiences down below. It's a safe space for grief as well. So if you want to open up and share and things like that, I'd like to create a nice little group here to, you know, a support group for people who have had to go through this or have just lost somebody. You know, it's hard. It's such a weird thing that you don't actually know what it's like until you've gone through it. And I know it's annoying to hear because, you know, it's like everyone will eventually experience this, and a lot of people have. I had no idea. I had no idea what this was like. So I hope this gives a little bit of insight into what it's like when you die without a will. It's difficult on the loved ones, let me tell you. So make your loved ones make a will. Something simple, doesn't have to be difficult. So make them do it. And yeah, share your insight down below, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.